Hello, welcome to the HealthInn Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all, but sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Health In Show. We're so happy to have you here. We have a wonderful show in store. I can't even wait to get started. So I just want to remind you all that you are more than welcome anytime during the show to call in and ask questions. And if you are by a landline, cell phone, whatever, 919-518-9773, or you can join us in our chat and you can ask questions in there as well. Just put your name under the video and just share away. And you can also come in on Skype, and that would be Skype voice. So it doesn't matter how you look. We just want your content. So that would be great. At computers, then the number 2K voice anytime. And just know that you have an open invitation. So there's all kinds of good questions. You might hear something that we don't hear, and we would love your feedback. So please join us. So let me just say thank you, Amnon, for everything always.
You're welcome always.
Always. So now my co-host is Uta today. So Uta, hello.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. So you're doing good?
Absolutely perfect.
You're in Portugal.
Yes, I'm in rainy Portugal where it's pouring since 72 hours without stopping.
Oof. I don't know if I'm ready for a little snow, but not that much rain.
I'd prefer snow, actually.
So how about you taking the honors and introducing our guest?
Yes, I would very much like to do that. Hello, everyone. We have today a very special guest that I'm very excited about. We have Eimear Burke with us. She's the chosen chief of the Order of the Bards, Ovates, and Druids. And she is here today to talk to us a little bit about Druidry, about the health from the perspective of Druidry, and about a lot of other things. I'm sure I've missed a lot about you, Eimear Burke. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Uta. Hi, Marilyn and Amnon. Just thank you so much for your invitation to be here, and lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
So, your question is about me, Druidry. Just be a little specific, and then that can get me.
First of all, let us know a little bit more about you.
Well, my name is Eimear Burke, and I'm a Druid, and I live in Kilkenny in the southeast of Ireland. I live here with my daughter, and I am a counselling psychologist in private practice, and so I've been a psychologist for many years. I was originally a nurse, and in the early 80s, I went to Africa, and I came back and decided to study psychology. And in a long way, I went back to Africa again and discovered healing and alternative viewpoints. And then through my time in Africa, I discovered Druidry, actually, in a strange kind of way.
Yeah.
So,
that's an interesting connection.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
I'm curious about, first of all, I want to know what for everyone, what it means to be a Druid, but also what was the strange connection? I think that's really kind of cool.
Okay. Well, I'll start with Druidry first. Druidry is essentially a nature-based spiritual path. And we look to, my window's out here, so I always look outside, so forgive me. Is that we look to the seasons and the landscape as a metaphor for our lives. So we have our own inner landscape and we have our outer landscape. And when these two landscapes are in harmony or in sync, then we're living kind of a balanced way of life. So we're living now in the time of Imbolc, which we follow the wheel of the year. So there are 8 festival points that we mark throughout the year, which correspond to the seasons. So we're in Imbolc now, and that is The old Irish word for Imulk is oimelk, which means ewe's milk.
Mhm.
And this is the time when the lambs are born. So obviously there's lots of ewe's milk going around the
Good.
place.
Mhm.
Imulk or imulg means in the belly, which refers to the womb. So this is, and in Ireland, this is the 1st of spring. The 1st of February is the 1st of spring. It may not feel like it, but that's what I was taught in school. In my head, spring starts in February, even though it could be snowing in March or April. Anyway, it's kind of one of these Irish paradoxes. But this is the time where, you know, when the shoots are just beginning to push up through the earth. And the snowdrop is the symbol of Imulk and February. And it's a time of hope and a time of, it's midway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So we're at the tail end of winter, but we're not quite yet into planting season. And we honor the goddess Bridget. She's the triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And she comes to us in her maiden aspect at this time. And she's known as Bryn na Crinne, the womb of the universe. So she's that ancient mother from which all life comes. She's a goddess of fire. She's a goddess of water. And so she brings that spark and flame of hope as we head in, as the days get longer and we're heading towards the warmer time of the year. She's also a saint in Ireland, Saint Bridget. I don't think she ever got the recognition by Rome, but Irish Catholics, Irish people have always honored Bridget. So it's very much a pagan festival and so she's the goddess of poets, the goddess of inspiration, of Imas. That's the old Irish word for or Awen is the Welsh word for inspiration. She's the goddess of midwives. She's the goddess of healers. So it's interesting that we're talking now, you know, about homeopathy, and you're calling me at Imulk. She's the goddess of midwives. Not only that, she's the goddess of smiths and craft workers. So she's this very, very, very powerful goddess. And she kind of morphed into being a Christian saint, but she's got a revival as she's always been here as a goddess as well. So this is what if we're looking to the landscape and tuning in, then there's more harmony in our lives. So essentially that's part of what Druidry is. It's vast.
So,
Absolutely
okay, so
excellent.
there's so much to talk about. I could just ask a million questions based on what you just said alone. But before we go into more depth about it, you mentioned about finding it in Africa, and it was a kind of an unusual way of coming about it. Could you just share that before we go into more detail?
Absolutely, I will. So I went to Africa in the early 80s as a nurse, and I was interested in traditional healing. And then I came back to Ireland, did my psychology, went back to Africa again. I was in Kenya the first time, in Lesotho the second. And then I came back again, and then I started going to Tanzania. And I was lecturing there, and I had been working with a Native American medicine woman, which it's a nature-based spiritual path as well. I thought, this is brilliant, except it's not mine. It's not from my landscape. Then going to Tanzania and became friends with a traditional healer called Shaban Kalula. We've had a close friendship. I don't know how long we know each other now at this stage. I can't remember, since 25 years or something. And Howard, my late husband, he was a child and adolescent psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. We started working and filming Shaban at his work. Really, really fascinated. And then Shaban came here for 3 summers doing workshops with us. And again, really, really interesting, but it wasn't mine. He initiated me, he gave me keys to work with, but I thought, this is African, it's not mine. And I was in a bookshop with him, and this book hopped out, and it was Cassandra Easton's book, The Modern Day Druidess. And she talked about Druidry from a very pragmatic perspective. You know, you can be in an apartment in a city in the US and you can have your own grove. You have an inner world. You can be a Druid. You don't have to be in the deep, dark forest. And then she mentioned Obad, the order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids at the back of the book. And then I went, and just like you, Uta, I did the introductory course, and then I was hooked. So I needed to go. It was almost like other nature-based paths, spiritual paths, brought me around to Druidry. I still go to, I haven't been to Africa now in a few years, but I taught there every year for 20 years. And each year I would go there. My roots in Ireland got deeper. So there was that wonderful connection and synthesis, because Indigenous worldviews tend to be the same. The colors and the textures are different, but the principles about honoring nature, honoring the ancestors, having a close, harmonious relationship with nature is common to all Indigenous practices. So I thought, this is mine. And it's been absolutely magical, because here I am living in my own landscape and really, really connecting with it.
Fascinating. Absolutely beautiful, and a nice detour into Africa on
Yes.
the way there. So would you say Druidry is like the European shamanism?
Well, there are 3 strands to Druidry.
Mhm.
We have, I'm going to go back a little bit. We have the bardic strand, and that's what you start at when you start in our order. Start with. There's no hierarchy, but this is the starting point. The bard is the storyteller, the history keeper, the who is in the quest of creativity. So we look for Awan or the Imas, and it's from the landscape, or from Bridget. Bridget is the goddess of poets in Ireland. Ceridwen is the goddess of inspiration in Wales. So we have that strand, and it's around connecting with nature, but it's the pursuit of creativity, or generating creativity from the landscape. And then you have the Ovate strand, which is the shamanic strand, the healer, the homeopath, the herbalist. They're the diviners, the seers, the Ovate journeys from the past, the present, into the future. And then you have the Druidic strand, which is the philosophical one. So it's the ritual holder, the teacher, the ethicist, so that you look at all of your actions through an ethical lens. You have a sense of responsibility. You don't. It's a non-dogma, or it's a dogma-free spiritual path. We have no diktats. We don't tell you whether you have to be monotheist, polytheist, animistic, atheist. It doesn't matter. Weave in Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, paganism into Druidry. What joins us is that nature connection. So for some people will say, I'm a bard, I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet, I'm not a healer, and that doesn't call me. And that's okay. Or you have the Ovate, or the healer says, yes, my medicine is through trees, or my medicine is through herbs, or I have a shamanic view, because Druidry is, we have that notion of one eye in this world and one eye in the other. That you walk that path between this world and the other world. And that it's a balanced way of living. So that's the shamanic strand, because with shamanism, you go into the other world, into other states of consciousness. You go there for insight or healing, and then you bring it back into the ordinary world. So yes, there is a shamanic strand. It's more than that. It's broader than shamanism, but it's part of it.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for that. So is there a belief system, because what you just mentioned, that it takes in all beliefs, that anybody can become a Druid, considering that we have very many different religions. It doesn't matter what belief system you're following, but is there a specific Druid belief system?
If you ask 10 Druids what Druidry is, you'll get about 11, maybe 12 different answers. Okay. That's for sure. Deepak, is that Deepak I'm looking at? If you're a Hindu,
let's say hello to him before we look. Yeah.
They might say the same about Hinduism. Yeah, Hindus is that you have that just very, very broad, but all inclusive as well. So,
definitely.
am I right?
I'm listening to you first, then I will share.
Okay.
Sure.
So that we have that love of nature. We don't have a dogma. So it's around being of service to the community, being responsible. We have a Druid's Prayer, which I can recite for you, which might give you an idea of what it is we value.
Mhm.
So it's grant, O Spirit, thy protection, and in protection, strength, and in strength, understanding, and in understanding, knowledge, and in knowledge, the knowledge of justice, and in the knowledge of justice, the love of it, and in the love of it, the love of all existences, and in the love of all existences, the love of spirit and all goodness. So that when you have that sense of the love of justice and the love of all existences, it's that sense of that interconnectedness between all things. There's no hierarchy. So humans are not at the top, and then we have animals and then plants, is that we are all equal and all part of that one web. So we are allowed follow our own values. We have common values, but for example, you don't have to be a vegetarian to be a Druid. You don't have to be a vegan to be a Druid. Some people are, but there's no authoritarian viewpoint on that. Is that you look at your actions through an ethical lens, so you take responsibility. Nobody tells you to do something. Can I live with this? You know, so you're encouraged. We are. These are things we. What do? We offer suggestions as to how you might practice as a Druid. You know, you might look after your local neighborhood. You might plant trees, groves, eat organic food, don't use plastic, be an activist. But these are suggestions. You don't have to. We don't have a view as to how you should be. But it's the love of all existences, that value that underpins all of our actions, so that we welcome all. So we have that notion of diversity. So we have Buddhist monks who are Druids. We have Christian ministers who are Druids. So we welcome everybody because there's no dogma, and we're not threatened by other views. And it's about allowing people to have their views, keeping in those values of, say, the Druids Prayer. We tend to be pacifists, so we have a peace prayer. Deep within the center of my being, may I find peace. Silently within the quiet of the grove, may I share peace. Gently within the greater circle of humankind, may I radiate peace.
Beautiful.
So we're saying then that it is not a religion.
Oh, well, some people might say it's a religion. Some people say don't. So if you were going to look at how it depends on how you define religion. Normally, I suppose religion might be defined as something with a set of dogmatic statements. There are certain rules, regulations. In that case, no, it's not. We don't have that notion of sin. We don't have a notion of commandments. But when you look at the values of the Druids Prayer, there are things that are implicit there for you. But so we don't have that notion of guilt, sin, what are good people and bad people. It's about being the best person you can be. We talk about ethics for the best possible person you can be. So that's where we are. So some might regard it as a religion, not in the strict sense, but sometimes when you're trying to engage with governments to be included in discussions about various policies, Druidry will go in under the banner of religion. Like I'm a celebrant, for example, of pagan marriages in Ireland, and that comes under the religious section. Pagans would say paganism isn't religion, but it's so broad. But for ease of purpose in a bureaucratic system, it might be just useful to go under the religious umbrella without actually getting caught up in the nitty-gritty definitions of it.
So Druidism isn't actually something that is just for the inhabitants of the British Isles. It's actually a system that can apply to a global, like-minded community.
That's a really good question. There are some Druids who think you have to, have Celtic ancestry to be a Druid, and I don't agree with that. Our order has over 25,000 members worldwide on all of the continents. So for us, is if you can hold those values. Obviously, we have teachings from the Celtic lands, as it were, but there's so much that you can connect in whatever landscape you're in the world. So we're open. And the notion of DNA and ancestry is highly flawed anyway. So we don't go in for that. Some people might, but we don't as an order. We're open to that. I have had people from Brazil come to a ceremony here and just start crying and say, I've come home. I've never, I came here 3 weeks ago, but this is my home. Why are they saying that? And that it's a really deeply moving experience. I mean, I've been to Africa. I've had such a strong connection with the land there. So whether it's because I was there in a past life, I have no idea. So ancestry can be very narrow. And that's if we can all know our true ancestry anyway. We can only ever know who our mothers are, really. Yeah. But for me, my Druidry comes from the landscape. That's why I said when I was working with a Native American woman and then working with Shaban, it's like they're different landscapes. They're not the landscapes in which I live. Yeah. This is my landscape and it speaks to me, and the ancestors of the land speak to me, not necessarily the ancestors of my blood, because I come from a Roman Catholic background. And nobody in my living memory or, the living memory of my family were Druids. But that's not important. It's how my landscape speaks to me. And I'm even living in a landscape, it's not where I'm from. But it has claimed me and I belong here now.
Super.
Deepak, you want to ask anything? You want to know anything? I know you came in a few minutes later, but I know you've been listening.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Sorry for joining late. So thank you, Ota, for giving such a wonderful speaker today. And in the last shows, we learned about the shamanism, and today we are learning about the Druidism. I may be wrong spell, but this is really actually we want to understand about the spirituality and the love. That every community which is spreading the love, spreading the spiritualism is the best. So every community have their own specifications, like Amir told about the Hinduism and the Islamic. And so everyone is having the perfect properties, and we cannot neglect any religion or any community. And the motto of all the religion or the community is just to spread the love or the spiritual. So here is one of my question from you, that how this community is helping to improve the sick peoples, or you can say the patient. Because in HealthInn show we are talking about the general people, so those who are not understanding about this system, so how any sick people get benefited from this one?
Well, I suppose I'm a psychologist, and my predecessor, Philip Cargom, is also a psychologist. So much of the teachings, there's psychology woven in. So there you have our mental health piece. And when you take a mind, body, spirit approach, that holistic approach, if you're taking care of your psychological well-being, you're taking care of your physical or your spiritual well-being, and then adopting the habits of, I suppose, eating well, etc., that actually enhances your health. Particularly at this time of pandemic, our meditation tools are really, really useful, as I'm sure the same with Hinduism, really, really helping people living in this present moment, living with uncertainty, staying with the now, surrendering yourself, focusing on your breath, for example, breathing. These all are things that actually contribute to your health and well-being. We, in our second grade, the Ovate grade, there's a little bit on herbalism, but we don't teach people how to be herbalists. That's something that you may do in addition to if you're interested. But right through the teachings is how are you taking care of your body? How are you taking care of your mind? How are you taking care of your spirit? Right through, and then exercises that we do to support that. So through our ritual meditation, like I say, breathing techniques, etc., that's how we do it.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think the techniques are same.
Yeah.
In every system. That's wonderful. Great. Ota, please.
So how do people know about being a Druid? Yes.
Well, we have a website, www.druidry.org, and it is a wealth of information about Druidry. You can see little information about the course, about the history of Druidry, what it means, who can be a Druid, all of that. And with the pandemic, we've started now holding ceremonies online. And we had one for the solstice, and it went out worldwide, not just, it goes beyond the order. And we had one for Imbolc on Saturday. And then Philip, my predecessor, he has these fireside or these tea with a Druid on a Monday, and I do these fireside chats with Eimear where I interview Druids on a Thursday evening, and they get live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. So I think with this pandemic, it's more and it's out there more, and because we're confined, that we now have a bigger online profile, and I never thought I would be doing that. So that's really, really interesting. I don't know if you've always been doing this, or have these programs started with the pandemic, or did you always have them?
Well, this show has been going on for 9 years now, Deepak, maybe?
Yes.
Deepak and our founder of Homeopathy World Community, Debbie Bruck, started this show about 9 years ago. I do another one called Breaking Free, which is also on the same channel, and I've been doing mine for close to 10 years.
Okay.
So, but Debbie passed away about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, we kind of try to keep things the same, as if she is just sitting right. She probably is here.
Yes, indeed.
And her legacy, and in honor of her and her energy, we just keep it going. So that's how that works. I wanted to ask you a question. I loved the start of what Deepak opened up. So I'm curious, based on Druidry, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, how is the health of your members? I mean, do you call them members? Do you call them, what do you call members? How is the health of your members during the pandemic? Based on, I mean, I'm sure, you know, like yourself, you've been doing this for years. I'm sure many of you, most of you maybe, have been doing this for years. You know, you may be, you know, new individuals find you and also find themselves at home when they find it. But how is the overall health, considering what your root is during this time?
I suppose not having an insight into every individual, but I imagine we're very well equipped to manage this pandemic in terms of our own inner world and our own practices to help us stay centered and focused in the now. With we've, you know, online communities to support. We have groves on seed groups all over the world, so people gather. They did gather. Now everything is online, to meet, to have meetings, to have ceremonies, and that has always been really, really important. And the interesting thing, we have a lot of solitary members, and now because of the online stuff, they are now connecting with the order in a way that they wouldn't have had before. And this is one of the wonderful silver clouds of this pandemic. So when we started doing our order big online rituals, people are saying, this is a lifeline for me. This is wonderful. I'm now part of this community. And I think, you know, one of the hardest, the most painful things about this pandemic is the isolation that people are experiencing. So here is a way, an actually healthy, positive way that social media can connect us. I mean, there's a lot of other crazy stuff that goes on there that isn't healthy, but here is something that we can actually use. So it's our own internal world, our own inner landscape, and how we tend to that, plus our online community, I think is actually keeping people as healthy as they can be. For some, this pandemic has really helped them. They've never been so creative. They've been able to switch off from all the distractions of the busy world, and have expressed poetry, art, and all sorts of stuff. And some have become really mentally healthier. Some people have stopped needing to take their medication, for example. And then others have found it a challenge, like when you think of the general population, finding the challenge of this social isolation difficult. I don't know if I've answered your question, Sat.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll have more based on some of what we're talking about. But that's a good one. So Uta, Deepak, you want to?
Yeah, I want to go back a bit to Druidry, because I'm sure our viewers and listeners would like to know a little bit more. Where do the teachings of Druidry come from? Because Druidry is ancient, old, and in the times, if I remember correctly, things were not, if I remember correctly, things were not really written down. I'm not that old, I'm sorry. But if I remember in my research.
Bless your memory, Uta. No, you're quite right. Druidry comes from an oral tradition, so the Druids of old didn't put anything to paper. It was felt, that each person was their own library, and that if you had to commit something to paper, it was like a poor reflection on your poor brain. And it's really interesting when you think of what they had to learn, the Bards and the Ovates and the Druids, an amount had to be stored in their head. I used to remember lots of things until I got a mobile phone. I used to remember telephone numbers and exam numbers. Oh, I don't remember anything now. So you get lazier and lazier as you put it either on paper or into a little machine. But in those days, obviously everything was held within. So all we know about the ancient Druids are the accounts of the Roman writers, and which were heavily biased, of course, because the brief of the Romans when they came to Britain and Gaul was to wipe out the power of the Druids because they were a great threat to their might and power. The other source are from the Irish monks here in Ireland. And again, and that's probably the richest source. We're really, really lucky that it's the Irish monks that recorded. Now, of course, that's heavily biased as well. So when you look at their stories, they have a biblical origin. So the first woman to come to Ireland, Cassandra, she was allegedly the granddaughter of Noah. And when God spoke to Noah and said, you build your ark and it's only good people and the animals come in, allegedly she went to her grandfather and said, grandfather, will you take me on board? And he said no. So anyway, she herself got 3 ships with her father, her brother, and one other man, Fiontan Macbocna, and they arrived with 51 women and 3 men to Ireland. And then we have these various people came and went. And then Christianity comes, and then the various heroes and characters in the stories all met St. Patrick and they got baptized. And then they died, and then they were really, really happy, obviously, because they wouldn't have been happy beforehand because they weren't Christians. So they've had that Christian flair on it, and yet they give us a nice, rich sense of how life was or how Druids engaged with nature. And I suppose the early Celtic Christianity is very, very much a nature-based spiritual path. It is said that many of the Druids eventually became monks and abbesses and nuns and things. And the Celtic Church here was very, very free until the Pope sent the Normans in the 12th century to destroy the power of the abbeys. So we don't know exactly what their rituals were, but we can glean from the stories how they might have done it. I know from the Irish language, I'm learning a lot about Druidry, that there's words embedded in the Irish language. There's even in the Irish place names. Now, unfortunately, they were anglicized at the end of the 19th century. And when you know the actual Irish name, you get a sense of the spirit of place. So you can find out bits from there as well. Then there was the Druid revival in Britain in, was it 1771 or 1774? And we have some, like that Druid's Prayer was written by a Welsh Druid called Eola Morganic, who, really interesting character. He invented a lot of texts. He said these were ancient texts he'd unearthed, and unfortunately they weren't true, but he still has that Druid's Prayer. You can't argue with that. He was also an activist. He inherited his wealth from his family, had sugar plantations, but he refused to sell sugar from a sugar plantation. So he had a sense of justice for the oppressed and a peacemaker and all of that. So that's the source, really, and what people are writing from their own lived experience, their own personal gnosis coming from the landscape and the mythology. That's it. We don't actually have ancient Druid texts, no.
I'm kind of curious about how you incorporate druidry in with your therapy practice? What does that look like? Like, what would somebody come with or for, and how do you bring it in? I mean, we're HealthInn show, so I'd love to kind of see, how you're actually using it practically.
Well, originally when I was trained, that nobody should know I am a Druid, because you're the blank screen, the therapist, and the client has no idea about you. But Google put paid to that. So what I have now is clients come and say, I Googled you, and now I know you're the right person for me, which means other people have Googled me and said, absolutely no way. She's crazy. So I use a shamanic technique that has been adapted to sitting in the therapist chair. So there's no feathers and I always burn incense and candles anyway, but that's just how I open space. So I open space, I create a safe space. The client isn't aware of that, but they know they see the candle and they know there's incense burning, and I clear it after each person. So I do it personally. My own practice is around creating a safe space. I don't willingly bring it in unless somebody asks. So if I work at an energetic level with somebody, then I'm weaving that in. So it's around creating the background or creating the therapeutic spaces, how I use my druidry. I work from home, so people come out and they come into my garden, and even when they're walking, they're seeing the trees and they're seeing the mess and the untidiness, because I don't live a perfect life, which actually I think reassures people. But as they're standing at my door to come in, they're looking over the landscape with a river and a garden. That all has, people say, God, I just love being out in this nature. So even the drive out all adds to what happens in the therapy room. And then there's whatever I offer myself, which is that non-specific stuff, piece as a psychologist. So if people want to engage at that level, I will, but I don't bring it up, because it's almost like I'm not pushing anything on anybody. And so much Druidry is a spiritual path, but it's also a personal development path. So right through the trainings are around personal reflection, personal review, these practices that you do, questioning yourself, goal setting, which is what you do as a therapist, but it's also a part of the training as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure they would have to find you because they're interested in what you offer, more so than just coming in blind.
Exactly. So some do, and they come and they get the psychologist. But I don't advertise and say, I'm a psychologist who's a Druid and I'll do this with you. It could be, if they say, what do you deal with? Well, there's spiritual issues, there's depression, anxiety, relationship, that stuff. I don't advertise myself as a psychologist who's a Druid or a Druid who's a psychologist.
You were going.
So, Eimear, do you believe in Vastu Shastra? If you know, in Hinduism, the science of architecture.
No, I'm not familiar with that term.
Okay, the science of architecture is like that. Your kitchen is in eastern direction, and open your door in this direction. So, is this system are you following in Druidism?
I get you. Okay, I mean, the 4 directions are very, very important. When we have a ceremony, we call on the 4 directions. We start in the east, and that even within the Irish language, you face the east. So what's behind you is the west. So even the word from behind is the west. What's in front of you is the east. To the right of you is the south. To the left of you is the north. So even within the Irish language, the directions are very, very important. And when I was learning Irish at school, I wasn't aware of the significance, but now as a Druid, I'm aware of it. So in my own room, I know I have, I suppose, archetypes in each of the 4 corners or the 4 directions in my room. And that's subtle. So my clients won't be aware of that. But I light my candle in the south, and I have my feathers in the east and my stones in the north and my water feature in the west. So I do that within that space.
I asked this question because I am working on the dreams for last 10 to 15 years, and your dreams are significantly varied when your direction of the sleeping is varied. Like you had a bad dreams when your head is on towards the south.
Ah,
So I am just asking about this because this is really affecting our body positions or the body physiology. So direction is really important in every science and every culture. So what you say, Marlene? Or
I don't work that way, but I don't know enough about it. I just thinking my head is in the south. And then I think of my own room.
What does that mean? What does that mean that your head is in the south?
Well, so my head is towards the south, so the direction of the south, and my feet are towards the north, just where the way my bed is associated. So I'm aware all the time of directions, but it's like I'm also pragmatic. This is where the bed will fit, type of thing.
you will feel it in every direction.
Yes.
I just want to remind everybody, we're going to keep on going, but if you have any questions at all, I've been wanting to say this, but I'm so interested in what our guest has to say that I almost forgot about you. So no, call in anytime you want, 919-518-9773, or you can join us in our chat. Just put your name under our video and come in right there and ask questions and comment, whatever you like. And you can also join us in Skype and come in and join the show and ask questions and comment. There's so much to this. I am sure we won't cover this, the whole thing. So if you've got any questions that spark your interest, please join us. So Uta, did you have something?
Yes, I'd like to know a little bit more about the order of the Bards, Ovates, and Druids. So tell us a little bit about it. How old is it?
It's, wait a second now, 56 years old. Was it 2014? We celebrated 50 years. It was founded by Ross Nichols, and his Druid name is Nuan. And he had been a member of, I think, the Ancient Order of Druids. And he had some difficulty, or anyway, he broke away from that and founded his own order. And he was very friendly with Gerald Gardner, who is the founder of modern Wicca. They were close friends, so they shared similar values, but then just diverged a bit, diverged. So Nuan set up, he had a small order, and he then met Philip, my predecessor, who's the second chosen chief. I think Philip he was a friend of Philip's father. I think Philip met him when he was 11, and then he became a mentor to him when he was 15. And Philip, after school, would go to him maybe once a week, and he would teach him. And when he was 18, he initiated Philip as a bard on the tour in Glastonbury. And then Nuan. So there was only one teacher, which was Nuan, and then he died. He died suddenly, and for about 8 years, the order kind of was in a bit of a limbo. I think there had been a successor, another chosen chief, but it wasn't very active. And then one night, 3 people knocked on Philip's door and says, "We want you to be the next chosen chief." But the interesting thing, and he said, no, I can't be it, I want it. And he said, no, we need you, blah, blah, blah. But prior to that, Nuan had come to Philip. His spirit had come and said, "Philip, I want you to gather all my teachings, and I want you to create a course by distance." So Philip was gathering stuff, didn't have it all. And then these 3 people come on the door, and he thought, okay, too many coincidences here. So he kind of revived the order, and I think there might have been 20 members at the time, and they used to advertise in some pagan magazines. And now when he handed it over to me, there was over 25,000. So he was 32 years as the chosen chief. So then he gathered the bardic teachings, and then there was the bardic course, and then he developed the Ovate, and then he developed the Druid. And it just expanded. So he lives with Stephanie, who's the scribe of the order, in Lewis. So that's where the office was, in their house until a few months ago. Now it's up the road, but still in Sussex. And so they just started having gatherings, meetings, and then they had camps, and then they had summer and winter gatherings for I don't know how many years now in Glastonbury. And so we have the order bit, and that's the bit that I'm involved with. There is the Oak Tree Press, which is the part that creates the course and the teachings. And now we're working on we went from paper to paper and a cassette tape, from there to a CD, and now we're going to go online. So it's interesting with the technology. And then there's the Mount Hemus. So we have an academic piece. So every year somebody's asked to write an academic paper to get a scholarship to grant to write an academic paper relating to Druidry. And then every 4 years we have a conference and they present the papers. We were meant to have had it in June. That's when I was going to be installed as the chosen chief, but because of a certain pandemic that stopped. But that didn't happen. So we have that part. And then we have groves and seed groups all over the world that have these ceremonies. So in part of your training, for each of the grades, every month you get 4 lessons and you work through those at your own pace. Take years. And then you also get a book on rituals. It provides you with a framework to perform rituals either as a solo, as an individual, or with the group to follow the wheel of the year.
Fascinating.
So go ahead. Now, I was curious about what the rituals. I mean, could you give us a sampling of a ritual? I mean, I envision witches, but can you give us a sampling, a little bit of what a ritual would look like?
Okay. So what essentially is we're in a grove. So nowadays it's a virtual grove, but a place. So some people I have a grove in my garden and it's a grove of trees. So other groups might meet at a sacred site, like not Stonehenge, we do that, but that's normally closed, but Avebury or some other sacred site, and they have a ceremony there. So generally you're calling on spirit, however spirit is to be you. So for some it can be God, goddess, God, or great spirit. We start off with 3 breaths, one with together with the deep dark earth beneath us, one with the sky above us, one with the seas around us. We chant Imas or Awen. We say the Druid's Prayer. We cast a circle. So casting the circle is creating the space. We, as Druids, we robe up. The Wiccans, they go skyclad. Ours is the opposite. We dress up. And in a sense, that's marking sacred time, like you dress for special occasions. And you take them off afterwards, and casting the circle creates that space. We consecrate it with water and fire. And then we call on the 4 quarters, which are associated with the elements as well. So, and we call for peace. So it's like, let us call for peace to the 4 quarters, for without peace no work can be. And that sets the scene. And then there's the rite. And the rite will correspond to whatever time of year we're celebrating. So this at Imbolc, we honoured Bridget, the snowdrop, new light, as she brings hope, and that's spark of inspiration and light and fire into the landscape. That's what we're honouring. So when we come to the spring equinox, it's about planting seeds. So every 6 weeks, our ritual is around a reminder: where am I right now in my own inner landscape, and how am I engaging with the outer landscape? The modern tradition is making New Year's resolutions in January. We don't do that. So every 6 weeks you're setting an intention for something. So for the spring equinox, we usually have a ritual with planting seeds, with ashes, with fire, or with water. What that could be: I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to clean my house, or I'm going to plant the seeds of patience, or whatever it is.
I have to interrupt you a second, because this is so interesting, because you never know about something till you really get into it. You have shared so much wonderful information that I never would have known, really. And I really appreciate you bringing it into our universe, into our world, to make it for it to sound accessible, for it to sound logical, and you know, it's wonderful. I mean, I've had, you know, I mean, I've met witches, I've met, you know, and it's wonderful to hear. That's what's so great about all of this, is that you can, you know, what you don't know, you don't know.
Yes.
But when you do know, it makes the world so much more peaceful and lovely and loving. So, you know, I have another really big question, but before I do that, I don't want to steal the show. So I want to, like, Uta and Deepak, you take over, because I got one I really want to know. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I want to hear Eimear play us something
Yes,
on her harp.
yes, definitely. Deepak, do you have another one before I ask my question? It's not.
No, please continue, Malin.
So you mentioned about the goddess, right, originally, and now you're the chief. I guess it's a question that has different parts. So how often has a woman been a chief? And are you the goddess?
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Let's all laugh.
Of course.
Of
Me
course.
too.
Yeah.
We all are. No, I'm the third chief.
Has there been a woman before you?
No, because I'm only the third chief. There was Ross Nichols, and then Philip, and then me.
Okay, so you are the first woman
In this order.
in this
And
order.
then there are different Druid orders in the US, and they're women.
They are
So,
women.
and it's just happened now. It's
Just
like
now.
in this last year. So it was over, or the last year or two. So somehow something is now. The order is not a patriarchal order. So they're we have the chosen chief, the scribe, and the pendragon. The scribe looks after the teachings of the order, and the pendragon means in Welsh the chief dragon, who holds the swords, the sword bearer and the protector of the chief and the integrity of the order. So when Nuan started, there was him, and the pendragon was a woman, and the scribe was a woman. So there was 2 women and a man. And then when Philip, there was Stephanie is the scribe, Philip was the chief, and then there was Will Worthington was a pendragon, and now Dave the Bard is. So now you've got 2 women again, the chief, the scribe, and the pendragon. So you'll always have a majority a minority of one gender, because there's only 3 at the top. But it's always been equal. That it's not a patriarchal organization. And I know initially with the revival, there were 3 criteria. You had to be male, Christian, and a Mason, a Freemason to be a Druid. That there's none of that. That's not there at all. It wasn't. It never has been with Nuan. He was, I think, very keen that wouldn't be.
Cool. All right. So music, a little music. Oh, go ahead, Deepak, go.
The best part is you are a druid with a psychologist.
Yes.
Right. Perfect combination.
Yes, this makes a wonderful combination, and really, you are really good, and I'm learning so much from you, and you are really wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Okay, do the harp. I hope it's still in tune.
Yep. We're gonna have a little concert.
That was so beautiful.
Sorry about the mess.
No, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Marilyn, what do you have to say? I can see it in your face.
Oh, it was wonderful. There were times where I was listening to it and I was just captivated. There were times where I just started to smile, where it was like fun. There was times where I just felt like I was just
Pick up the mic.
oh, there were times that I was just captivated, just like quiet. There were times that I felt like I was laughing. There was times I felt like I was a kid. There was times where I felt, I mean, it was just, it had everything.
Beautiful.
Did you write that? Is that your music?
Oh, no. That's
I don't know.
called the Wounded Hussar by Carolyn. Carolyn was a famous Irish harper,
Okay.
Harlock O'Carolan, who composed lots and lots and lots of harp tunes. So that's unfortunately, no, I'm no composer. So.
Well, it was marvelous. Deepak?
Yes, this was wonderful, and you are really great because now I can say you are good musician with a psychologist with a druid. So you are a chief really.
Yeah, I'm going to take you home, Deepak. I need to hear this. Okay, thank you so much.
Everybody wants to take him home. That's why he's our Deepak. You can't. Nope. I mean, everybody wants him.
You're not going to share. Okay, all right.
We share, but we share. Oh, that was wonderful. So we really thank you so much for being here. I mean, it was just, and I would love for you to come back again.
That would be lovely. I've really enjoyed meeting you and chatting to you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
I'd love you to come back again. And today we kind of went into all kinds of directions. I hope everybody, but I'd love to like come back and like focus in on something else, you know.
Okay, that would be lovely. I'd really love that.
Yeah, and I love your room, and I want to just know more about that because I love books. So Uta and I were talking about that. Like,
absolutely,
oh my God, we just want to come to the room.
Okay, well, there is for another time. There is a wonderful story for this room.
I would love to do that. Okay, everybody, you're gonna have to come back again. Watch our advertising because we want to know that answer. And do you just one question? Do you see people telehealth? Like, do you do like on Zoom and stuff? Do you do therapy that way?
I do for Irish people. Yes, I do.
For Irish people, but not other people.
Well, it's all about what do you call that stuff?
Yeah, I got it.
So yeah, so I have a very small practice now since I've taken over as head of the order. So a small online practice. Yeah, everything is online now. Of course,
everything's online. All right, Uta.
Yes, I'm just wanting to shout out there. If anybody wants to know more about the Ovates, go check out their website. And if you're interested to know a little bit more, even beyond the website, go try their introductory course. And if you're interested to join the Ovates, then just do the course. I think that's what I can recommend. I'm certainly gonna try that when my time permits me to do that. So thank you very much, Eimear. It was wonderful to have you here. I very much enjoyed this hour with you. It was very, very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you everyone.
Marilyn.
Thank you. And then just a few notes about HWC. We have a phenomenal community, safe and sound. We talk about anything. We have great security. We have wonderful groups that talk about specific things, general things. Come to our website at Homeopathy World Community. We have all kinds of fabulous things going on for members only. Uta, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to shout out on the 14th of February, we have upcoming a virtual spiritual wellness circle. So if you want to find out about us, about Homeopathy World Community, and if you want to talk with us from all walks of life, we have people joining. If you want to talk to us about spirituality, on the 14th, we are actually looking at love and the love of the self. So perhaps you want to join us for that. And there's a calendar on our website. If you want to know what's coming up for the rest of the month or in the coming months, do check out that calendar.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Deepak, you have any final words?
So this is really it was a really wonderful experience to learn about Druid and many things about the community. Thank you, Uta, for giving such a nice experience about this lecture, and thank you, Marlene, for hosting this show, and thank you, Emnan, the magic man. So thank you, Eimear Burke. So wonderfully you explain each and everything, and we like the show, and we invite you in the future. So I request every homeopath and the people who want to join Homeopathic World Community, just go to our website and just click on to the buttons, and you can see how the homeopathic community is spreading with love. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Everyone, bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.